Hey everyone, welcome back to Bagel TCG. Today I'm super excited to be doing our first Part the Misfail deck tech. It's for a hero I'm really excited about. I've been enjoying playing a lot online, and I'm really excited to share this deck that I put actually quite a lot of games into, even though the set's not even out yet. Luckily, we have Talishar to do a lot of practice, so I'm excited to talk about the deck and explain what feels a lot like Guardian to me. A lot of you know me for playing Guardian, and this deck is probably the closest thing to Guardian's playstyle that isn't just Guardian. So I'm excited to go through and talk about the deck. I guess it's also a bit similar to Icelander. If you like that, if you just like hyper disruption, if you really just want to be disrupting your opponent's game plan the whole time, the Nuu is going to be the hero for you. So let's get right into it. Nuu is the new, the new Mystic Assassin hero. She has the classic 4 intellect and 40 life for the adult hero, and she has the hero abilities. The two hero abilities. The first one is your attacks with stealth. Get when this chain link resolves, banish all action cards defending this. So that's active on all of your stealth cards. Whenever they defend a stealth card of yours with an action card, that action card will be banished whenever the chain link ends. So when you close it or at the end of the turn, any action that defends one of your stealth cards gets banished. And the second part of your hero ability kind of utilizes that. As an instant, you can pay 3 chi resources. These are a new kind of resource. They're using this little blue symbol instead of the classic red symbol that you see later in the hero ability. And you can only get them very specific ways, but we have a lot of ways to get these resources. You look at the top card of an opposing hero's deck. If it's blue, you can banish it. And then until end of turn, you can play all blue cards from your opponent's banish zone without paying their resource costs. This is really powerful. It's not good in every matchup. Some heroes have very synergistic cards. So, for example, if you're against a Mechanologist and you banish a blue boost card, you can play it, but you can't boost it, of course, because you don't have mech cards in your deck. But some heroes, this is really, really good against. So, for example, against Guardian, they have really expensive, like 6 or 7 cost attacks. So, like Blue Macho Grande, that comes in for 8 Dominate at the cost of 7 resources. It makes it free. So, if you banish their Blue Macho Grande for just these 3 Chi resources, you can come in for 8 Dominate. Basically, yeah, discounting it all the way from 7 resources to 3. So it's a bit matchup specific, but it has matchups where it's just really OP, super, super good, and you're going to be quite favored in that matchup because of this hero ability. Let's get into the equipment. We have quite a lot of new equipment. The only equipment we had before this set is Fyendal Spring Tunic. I mean, this is a classic one. I don't really need to talk about it too much. It gives you free resources. And then we have the Assassin Weapon Spider's Bite. This is kind of just the most universally helpful assassin dagger on hit, giving attack actions -1 defense. Really, you can mess around with what daggers you're using. I don't think there's any best option. This is like a day 0 deck, so it's not even going to be the most optimal deck. I mean, this is where you should get started with the deck, and I think this deck's a really good baseline. But nothing in this deck, I'm not going to say this is the best version because the set's not even out yet. So this is where I would get started, but you might want to try some other daggers as well. But this one's just good. Most decks play attack actions, and this one will do a good job there. The other dagger we're playing is the new one. This is only for Mystic Assassins, and it's Beckoning Mistblade. This one has some amazing synergy with our deck. It has the classic 2 resources for 1 attack with Go Again, but it has a really good on hit, which says when this hits, your next blue attack this turn gets +1 and Go Again. This already synergizes really good with our hero ability. If we are playing blues from their banish zone, usually we can only play 1, right? Unless it has Go Again. Let's say we're against Guardian, we can just play the 1 big blue attack. But if this hits, we can then play 2 of them, which just makes it that much better. So has good synergy there, but we're also playing almost entirely blue attacks. You can see this is why I say it's kind of like Guardian. I'm currently playing 36 blues, so really heavy amount of blues, basically the same amount that Bravo plays, and actually a little more than Victor plays. Victor's usually on 33, we're on 36. This might be a little high. This deck might be better at 33 or 30, but I kind of want to push the limit when I'm testing the initial version, and I think it synergizes really well. I've actually enjoyed the 36 more. The other two new, well, actually, they're all new equipments, but the two common ones are Arousing Wave and Undertow Stilettos. These are both Mystic Assassin. They're both common. They kind of do the same thing, just slightly different. They both block for 1 with Battle Worn, which is already great. Battle Worn is really nice because you can block with this whenever you need it. Any breakpoints in particular, right? They come in for 4. You can block with a 3 block and then this. And you'll still get the effect later. That's my favorite thing about Battle Worn equipment. You get the effect whenever you need it, and you can block whenever you need it, and they don't really mess up too much unless you need the effect first, but usually you'll block with it first. So yeah, really powerful, and they both have attack reaction, pay 1 resource to destroy this, and then you create either a Fang Strike in your hand with the arms, or a Slither in your hand with the legs. And let's look at what those tokens are, because those are 2 of her signature tokens. Slither just says target attack action gets go again, and Fang Strike says target attack action gets +1. They're both ephemeral, so once you play them, they go away. They're just removed from the game. Ephemeral cards don't go to your graveyard. They're instead removed from the game. You can arsenal them. Ephemeral doesn't mean it's only has to be played right away. It just means if it would go to your graveyard, it's removed. They can even go into your deck. If that happens, you can't pitch them. They don't have a pitch cost. But let's say you have like a sink below, you can sink them. They can go to your banish zone, which doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, they just can't go to your graveyard. And they're really nice. The really important thing here is that it counts as 2 attack reactions. This itself is an attack reaction, and then the Fang Strike or the Slither that you're getting to your hand is also an attack reaction. This matters because we have cards like Double Trouble that say if you've played or activated 2 or more attack reactions this chain link. So if you want to get 2, the arms and or legs get that all by themselves, just for 1 resource. It counts as an attack reaction when you activate it, and then it'll put an attack reaction into your hand that you can play. So it's already, this is 2 by itself. The last equipment is by far the most important card in the whole deck. I think this deck is probably just straight trash without this card. I could be really wrong. Maybe this is my worst take about the deck, but I think this card is the most important card in the deck. It says once per turn attack reaction. Already great, right? We love repeatable attack reactions. Like I said, we have quite a few cards that care about attack reactions. You have to pay 3 chi resources. Target defending hero banishes a card from their hand. I mean, that's crazy, right? You are paying 3 chi resources, so you're paying 1 of your blue chi cards. You're paying 1 card for them to banish a card from their hand. They don't get a choice. I mean, they get a choice which card they banish, but they can't stop this effect. They can't like pay resources to go against it. Like there's a Coronet Peak was a ice headpiece where they could either discard a card or pay a resource. This doesn't let them choose. They just have to banish that card. Super, super powerful. It does also have Blade Break 2, so it can block for 2, but you really don't want to block with this unless you're about to die. And the huge thing is that this gives us a use for those chi resources when your opponent's banish is really thin, and it even builds up that banish zone, right? Because at the beginning of the game, the hero ability, the second part, is very useless, right? They have nothing in their banish zone, so you're not going to be able to play anything from their banish zone. But this puts cards from their hand into their banish zone. If they put a blue, then you're going to be able to play later, and that makes them not want to put blues, so they're going to banish reds. When they're banishing reds, their turn is a lot weaker because they're banishing their high damage cards. So it's really a win-win for you either way. And it also, my favorite part personally, is that it helps you fatigue opponents. The important thing here is that your chi card goes back into your deck. You're just pitching it, right? Their card goes to their banished. So you're trading 1 for 1, but yours goes back into your deck, and theirs is permanently banished. This is huge because you can do this over and over. And if you've used this effect 3 times with the same chi card, you're up 3 cards on them in your deck, right? So this really helps with fatiguing the opponent. It's not the primary game plan, but I find often, even when I win by damage, I'm like 20 plus cards up on my opponent in the deck, and I'm only usually presenting 60. You just get so much card or deck advantage with this headpiece. So this headpiece is why I wanted to play the deck. I don't think I would be interested in the deck without the headpiece, but it's just really, really fun to play with. So that is the equipment suite. I spent quite a while talking about the headpiece in particular, Mask of Recurring Nightmares, but I think it's the main reason you have to play the deck. Um, Unfortunately, I don't know how much this card's going to cost because the set's not out yet, but it is a legendary. I really don't think you should play Nuu unless you have it, which is kind of unfortunate. But if it helps, everything else is pretty budget. The legs and the arms are both commons, and Tunic is expensive, but there are actually budget alternatives to Tunic that I think are just as good. So if you're gonna have to buy into the deck, this is like the only card that you should really care about that's expensive. Mask is just super important. I think the deck is not budget, but you can make it budget. You just can't take out the Mask of Recurring Nightmares. Let's get into the deck. So I talked about how 36 blues, that is quite a lot, and that's because we're trying to support all of these Transcend cards. So if you haven't seen them before, there is, I believe, 8 Transcend cards that are just Mystic cards. They're all Mystic instants. And then there is a 9th one, which is specific to your class. So there's Mystic Assassin, Mystic Ninja, and Mystic Illusionist. So you can play up to 9 in your deck if you're a Mystic hero. The 8 Mystic instants, and then your class-specific one. I believe that is correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So there's 9. They all have the same text here at the bottom, which says, if you've played another blue card this turn, transcend, which means you put it into your hand flipped. The flipped is the chi resource. So it is the only thing that can pitch for those blue resources. These are the only thing that can pitch for this, Mask of Recurring Nightmares, and the new hero ability. So I'm playing all of the ones you possibly can. They're all legendary, so you can only have one of them, one of each of these with a specific name. So we're just playing the one of each, and they each have a slightly different small effect tacked on. So really what you want to be doing with this deck, because you want to activate Mask every possible turn you can, is you want to play a blue card, usually a blue attack, and then you want to play a blue Transcend card, because you have played a blue attack, it'll flip, and then you can use the reaction of the headpiece and make them banish a card from their hand. It's a pretty common line. It's your bread and butter line, basically. The deck has a lot of lines, so that's like simplifying the deck a lot. You can also play them in response to each other. They're instants, so you can play one, and then before that one resolves, you can play a second one, so they're both not resolved yet, and then they will both see each other. So they'll both see that you've played a blue, and then when they resolve, they'll both go back to hand. You have to make sure you do it before either resolves. You can't just play one, let it finish, and then play the other, because the first one won't flip because you haven't played another blue card. You have to play them basically both at the same time. But you can do that. Not all of them can, because some of them need a target. Like this one gives an attack -1 power. But some of them can. Like, for example, this one just says shuffle. You just shuffle your deck. This one says draw a card, then put a card from your hand on the bottom. So you can play those in response to each other. But basically, we're just playing all of these we possibly can. And that is the main reason we're at 36 blues, because I want to guaranteed 100% have at least 2 blues every turn. I need 2 blues. And 2 blues would be 30 blues, is like the minimum for that. But I'd like a little higher to guarantee it. And if I draw a third blue, it's really not the end of the world. Most of our blues block for 3, except for the instants, and we don't want to block with those anyways because we want to be using them. So that is kind of the main strategy. Play the Transcend card every turn, activate Mask. If your opponent never gets a 4th card, especially if they're an aggressive deck or a combo deck, they're really going to be upset when they only ever get 3 cards to play with. They're basically permanently stuck on 3 cards because you're going to be making them banish a card from hand every single turn, which will decrease their damage output quite a lot. Now, there is a pretty big problem with playing just the blue attack every turn, and that is blue attacks are really, really weak, at least most of them. So, for example, if we look at Bonds of Attraction, this is a blue attack. It has stealth, and I think all of our blue attacks, or at least most of them, have stealth. The only thing that matters for really is for the hero ability, so whenever this chain link resolves, banish all attack actions defending it. But then it says, when this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck, and then banish a card from their graveyard. Whenever this banishes a card, if this has banished another card with the same color, gain 1 life. So it's Pretty bad on the surface. It's just 1 damage. A whole card for 1 damage is really bad. It does have the upside of potentially getting you 1 life. So then it's a little bit better, but still not great. But it has quite a few actual synergies going for it that we'll kind of talk through. The first is, of course, you're banishing up to 2 cards, right? So if this is hitting, you're getting the top card of their deck and a card from their graveyard. You also get to pick the card in their graveyard, which is really nice, because you might not care about the 1 life, you might just care about picking the card, because then you can play it later off of your hero ability. In a perfect world, you will banish a blue off the top of their deck, and then you can pick any blue in their graveyard, and then you'll be gaining a life, and you're getting 2 blues into their banished. But often I think you care less about that 1 life unless you really need it. Often you care more about just picking a card in their graveyard, saying, I'm putting this in your banished, and I'm going to get to play this later in the game. Most of the game, when you have your inner chi, you mostly are going to be activating Mask, but you will play the deck enough to realize when you want to not activate Mask and instead use your hero ability. Usually it's when they have a good enough banish zone where there's something worth playing, right? So let's say you're playing against a ninja and all they have is a blue head jab, which just attacks for 1 with go again. Like, that's obviously not worth it. But if you're against Guardian and they have a big 8 power blue, that's a lot better, I'd say, than just getting rid of a card, right? Because you're attacking for 8 with 1 card. That's pretty crazy. And then it's worth it. So you have to gauge for yourself when it's better to hero ability compared to Mask. Mask is going to be better most of the time, but once and sometimes twice a game, you'll want to use your hero ability, and then against some decks, you just want to use it a lot, like Guardian. So yeah, we have these blues. Some of our blues are really busted, 2 in particular. Bonds of Agony is our Majestic. This card's pretty insane. I think it's probably one of the best cards in the whole deck. It's another 0 for 1. Basically all of them are for 0 for 1s. With Stealth, but it says if you've played or activated 3 or more attack reactions this chain link, this gets +3 power, and when this hits a hero, look at their hand, choose a card, search their hand, deck, and graveyard for up to 3 cards with the same name, and banish them, and then shuffle. They shuffle. This card's crazy. This is the main reason we have all these attack reactions on our arms and legs and headpiece. You don't even have to draw any attack reactions to get this off. You have 3 just on your equipment. This counts as 1 if you use your Mask, and then this will count as 2 if you activate it and then play the Slither. So you don't even have to draw anything else. You could do all of it off of like a Tunic resource for this and a Chi card. So you can do it off a 2-card hand if you want. But of course we really want it to hit, so we're playing a bunch of buffing attack reactions to make that more consistent. But this card, I can't understate how insane this card is. When it hits, you look at their hand. So you're seeing their hand, you get to pick any card, and that card's banished, right? If they have 2 cards in their hand with the same name, you can banish both of those because you're just basing it on name. So this card can even potentially take 2 cards from their hand. Also, it takes it from their deck. And so let's say I've had in one of my games of practice, you hit a Brute player, and you see Blood Rush Bellows in their hand, which is by far their best card. You get to banish that, and then you get to look through their deck and find the other 2 Blood Rush Bellows and banish those. So they've just lost all 3 of their most powerful cards. I think this card is going to make people really mad to play against. It can be really frustrating when someone just gets all 3 of your powerful cards. They also all go to banished. So you can play all 3 of them if they're blue, or if you take a red one from hand, and then you look in their deck, you can take 2 blue ones because it just cares about the name. And you get to look through their deck no matter what. Like, you just get to look at their deck. So you can just sit there and look at every card that they're playing if this hits. So this card's crazy. This card's crazy good. The other blue Majestic Stealth card is Persuasive Prognosis. This one's also pretty good, but not quite as good. It says, when this hits a hero, you banish the top card of their deck. Then you look at their hands and you banish a card with the same color as the banished card. Whenever this banishes an action card, gain 1 life. So this one, you have to work a lot harder to get to hit. It doesn't buff itself at all, like the Bonds of Agony gives itself +3 if you get it off. This one's always just for 1. So you do have to work quite a bit to make it hit. But when it does hit, it's really good. You banish the top card of their deck, you hopefully they have a card in their hand of the same color, which usually they will, right? You're not going to have like, usually it's like probably 90% or more for them to have it. You can get unlucky, of course, but you're pretty likely to have it. You'll look at their hand, you'll banish a card, and then you're probably going to gain some life because most cards in Flesh and Blood are action cards, and you will get life based on however many you banish. Also, if they're blocking this card, they are probably blocking it with action cards. And because of our hero ability, this will banish them when the chain closes, and you'll gain life based on those. So you're almost always going to gain life with this card, and it has a pretty good on hit. It just takes a little more work. I'm going to speed up a little bit because we're already 20 minutes in, but I think that explains a lot of the blues. We're playing a bunch of other blue stealth cards with on hits. You can look through them all here. We've got Double Trouble, Bonds of Memory, Art of Desire, Mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6, so 18 total blue stealth cards. They all are blues. They block 3. They come in for 1. They have stealth, and then they just have different effects. But that is, yeah, kind of the base of the deck, plus all of the Transcend cards. The only other blues to mention are Surgical Extraction. This is one of our better blues as well. It's not a stealth card, but it has another amazing on hit. When it hits a hero, banish the top card of the deck, and then you get to look at their hand and banish a card. I don't know if you can tell, but this is the third one that lets you look at their hand and banish a card, along with Persuasive Prognosis and Bonds of Agony. So we are really disrupting our opponent's hand. Not only are we regularly looking at their hand to banish cards, we're also banishing a card almost every turn with Mask of Recurring Nightmares. So in the ideal world, we get one of these off every turn and mask, which means they are down 2 cards every turn. They're just on a 2-card hand. Obviously, that's not going to happen every turn. It's just not statistically going to. You only have 9 She cards, so you can't draw one every single hand. But that's what you would like to happen, is to have that happen most turns. The other blue cards, we've got Hold the Line. This is just a nice blue defense reaction. It's really powerful in the current meta, with Brute being around, a lot of decks draw 2. It also counts as playing a blue card. So if you play this on your opponent's turn, you can play one of your Transcend cards and get it flipped on their turn, which can be helpful, especially if you don't draw a blue attack. It's not likely, right? We're playing so many, but sometimes it does happen. And this lets you flip on your opponent's turn, which can be quite good. Let's finish up with the red cards here, plus the little bit of yellow. The yellow card is just Codex of Frailty. If you've never played Assassin or Ranger before, this is known as their best card. It basically lets you take any attack action from your graveyard, put it in your arsenal, play it, and then you also get a ponder, so you'll draw a card at the end of your turn. So not only does it basically replace itself with any attack you want, but you also get to draw a card. So it's pretty insane. There's a lot more to it. You also have to have an empty hand, because otherwise you discard a card. Your opponent also gets to do the same thing. You also give them a frailty. This card does a lot, but yeah, it's probably the worst assassin deck for it, because we play so many reactions, it can get kind of clunky. But I do think it's still worth it, and in the worst case scenario, you can just pitch it for a dagger, and it's not the end of the world. For the reds, we're playing 4 different red reactions. We're playing Justinic. This is definitely the best one. It just came out, and it is insane. It costs 0, and it says choose one or both. Target attack action with 1 or less base power gets +5. +5. Just here's my one card that gives me +5. This card's the main reason that we're able to get away with playing all these 1 powers, because it just gives them +5. The second part says target attack with stealth gets, when this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. So one of your best kind of 2-card plays is this with Persuasive Prognosis. It'll pump it all the way up to 6, so they'll have to have blocked with 2/3 blocks to not let it through, and it'll make it banish an extra card, which can potentially gain you even more life. So yeah, this card's crazy. It's really, really good. It is, of course, sometimes awkward, because you can only use it on attack action cards with 1 or less base, so you can't use it on the Surgical Extraction, or this Leave No Witness, or this Command and Conquer, so sometimes it doesn't do anything, but it does block for 3, so you can always just block with it or arsenal it. Yeah, it's a little clunky, but it's well worth it. It's super good. Our other reactions, we have Hiss, which is a reaction that costs 1. It gives +3 to an assassin or mystic attack action, And if you've pitched a blue this turn, you get a Slither. Slither is the reaction that costs 0 and gives go again. This one down here. And then we have the other version, Venomous Bite. This does the same thing, 1 cost for +3. And if you pitched a blue this turn, this one gives Fang Strike. Once again, Fang Strike is the one that gives +1 for 0 cost. So we've got both versions of it. Another important thing here is they both count as 2 reactions, right? This is a reaction, and then it creates the reaction in your hand. So it's another powerful way to turn on our Bonds of Agony and our Double Trouble. The last reaction is Tide Chakra. Tide Chakra is weaker on the surface. It's just another 1 cost that gives +3, which is basically just worse than Hiss and Venomous Bite because it's just giving the +3. But it says if you've transcended this turn, instead it gets +5. +5 is really good. It's almost as good as Justinic. It does cost 1, but you can use it on any Assassin or Mystic card, and +5 is quite a lot. Transcending means flipping one of your cards, so you have to have flipped that this turn, but ideally we're doing that every turn if we can, or almost every turn. And then +5 is just crazy. One of my favorite lines is to pitch a blue, attack with Surgical Extraction for 4. You'll transcend, use your mask to banish a card from their hand, and then with your 1 floating, you will Tide Chakra to give your Surgical Extraction +5, so then you will hit them for 9 and banish another card from their hand. Pretty crazy. You get to take 2 cards from their hand, and you get to deal 9 damage. Really, really good. So I like this card quite a lot, and I think it's the weakest of the attack reactions, but I think it's still quite good, and when you do Transcend, it's maybe your best one. So really powerful card. We've got only 2 red attacks here. They're just our 2 really good Arsenal cards, Arsenal hate cards. We kind of have to have them because they're just that powerful. They're a little anti-synergistic because they're not blue, so they're not flipping our Transcend cards, but honestly, these cards are just so good that you cannot not play them. Leave No Witnesses is 0 for 4. When this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck and 1 card in their arsenal. Command and Conquer, the classic, 2 for 6. When it hits a hero, destroy all cards in their arsenal. So both of them just destroy your opponent's arsenal. Like I said, they have a little anti-synergy, especially Command and Conquer, because it's a generic, so it doesn't work with any of our reacts. It doesn't work with... They all target Assassin, 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 and this one is 1 or less base, so none of our reacts work on Command and Conquer, which is awkward, but honestly, it's too good. It's too good not to play. It's worth it. And Leave No Witness does work with most of our reactions, so this is even better because you can, give it buffs and make sure it hits. We're playing Sink Below. This is the card I'm kind of iffy on because it's nice. Like, Sink Below is a great card, and it does let us fix our hand a little because you can put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck and draw a card, so you can kind of fix it. But, I mean, it's not really doing anything special for our deck, and maybe there's a better option here. But I just put it in to add a little bit of consistency and a little bit of defensive power. That's basically the deck. I skipped a few cards here and there, but I think that really explains the deck, which is play a blue attack or play a blue card, flip your Transcend card to use your mask, and then also disrupt your opponent's hand or arsenal. We've got Arsenal Disruption. We've got many instances of hand disruption. We're trying to take, ideally, 2 cards from them every turn. That's usually 1 from hand, and then either 1 from arsenal or another 1 from hand. That's really the goal, is to try to take 2 cards from your opponent every single turn. The sideboard is mostly for going later in games, and so we've got Orion of Mystic Tenants. This says, draw 2 cards. If a Chi was pitched to play this, instead draw 3. Once again, Chis are our flipped versions of all of our Transcend cards. Pretty powerful. Draw 2 for 4 resources isn't great, but in the late game, you'll pitch this, and you will eventually draw it back with all of your Chi cards. And then it's really good because it's drawing 3. It costs 4, but ideally you're going to play it off of Tunic and plus a Chi. So you're basically going up 1 card by just using that Chi and this to draw an extra card. So pretty good. And then on the same note, we have Unravel Aggression. This is a Mystic Defense reaction that blocks for 5, costs 3, which is a little below rate. But if a Chi was pitched to play this, draw a card, which is pretty crazy. Basically, it is just blocking for 5 by itself then, because you're replacing the Chi you pitched for it. So a card blocking 5 by itself is really good, but It's not great on the first cycle because you don't often and you don't consistently have a chi for it. So this is more of a really late game card on the slower matchups. We have a Remembrance to add. Particularly Codex is a really good target because it's adding it back plus any card you want basically with it. And then 3 Oasis Respite. This is, of course, for Kano, but also it's really nice because it plays around Command and Conquer and you can play it from hand. I think it's a lot more flexible than something like Fate Foreseen. We run Tunic, so we can use it a lot. It gains a life. I kind of just like it more than your average defense reaction. In the matchups that we need this, I think it's better than having something like a Fate Foreseen. Um, We've got 3 Arcane Barrier for that Kano matchup. We've got Scale Peeler for specifically Valiant Dynamo matchups because otherwise our Mist Blade won't get through. Vambrace of Determination, this is mostly for Enigma. And then Redback Shroud, this card's a card I've been testing a good bit. I think it's better against the aggro decks than Tunic because you can block with it really early, and then you can use it to discount one of your attack reactions by 1 resource as an attack reaction. And as you saw, most of our attack reactions cost 1, so this makes them free. And it counts as an attack reaction itself. So yeah, you get 2 right there, which it helps a lot. But the main thing is that it has Battle Worn in block 1, so you can block with it really early. If your opponent comes in and makes you block, especially against aggro decks, sometimes Tunic just sucks in that scenario because you really can't block with it, otherwise you lose it. So I'm trying that out against the aggro decks. This has been hopefully a good video explaining Nuu and the first initial version of the deck I have. It's felt pretty powerful in the testing I've done with it. If you want to keep up with Nuu as I update it and do testing more, you can support me on Patreon. On my Patreon Discord, I have all of my lists basically for every hero. Not all of them are as updated. You can see some, like this poor Reinar, hasn't been updated for a while, but some of them are very active, and I'm regularly updating all of these Patreon lists that you can look at, and they have more sideboard guides and stuff like that. And if you want to see lots of other options, I think I have quite a large maybe board in here of cards that I've also looked at as options. But thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments about the decks, I know it's very new, remember to put them down below, like, and subscribe. See you next time.